Hey everybody, it's D-Swizz Wildcat back at you with another video. As y'all can see, I've changed up the background a little bit, so please let me know what y'all think of it in the comment section below. Please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification bell to get notified when I upload, and share this video on all major platforms if you would please. Now let's get into this. We're going to preview our Kentucky Wildcats Week 4 game against the Northern Illinois Huskies. They are 1-2 on the year. As always, I'm going to talk about each team's offense and defense, along with 3 keys to win and a final score prediction at the end. Now, starting with the Huskies offense, their starting QB was injured in their loss last week to Vanderbilt. Lombardi was on a good roll through 2 games, but he got hurt in the second quarter of that game against Vandy, and the drop-off was pretty noticeable if you ask me. The QB that's most likely to start against us is Ethan Hampton. He took over for Lombardi in that Vandy game. And if you look at the box score, then you would think he was a serviceable quarterback that led 2 scoring drives against an SEC team. But then you look closer and you dive into those scoring drives and you realize one of them was a 50-plus yard touchdown rush and the other was a 70-yard passing touchdown where he just threw the ball 5 yards and the wide receiver took it 65 to the house. On his other 11 completions, he only had 54 yards. And that's about 5 yards per pass. That's not very good. And against a Vandy defense that's been struggling this year, they've given up quite a bit of points. I think last week it was Elon, an FCS team, so not very good. They had no business shutting them down in the second half like they did. That 70-yard touchdown pass was literally the first play of the third quarter, and after that they couldn't get anything going. And a lot of that falls on their QB, but he is a freshman, so I don't blame him for struggling a bit. But with that being said, I don't see a way for him to have a decent game against us this week unless his wide receivers can bust a big one while we're out of position. The wide receiver that has the biggest big playability is Cole Tucker. He has 15 receptions for 278 yards and 3 touchdowns this year. He's explosive and he can take those screens 80 yards if you're not careful. We did give up a big passing play last week after halftime against Youngstown, so he could be a player to watch bust a big chunk play this week. Their running backs also have that big playability. Antario Brown and Harrison Whaley have both had 50-plus yard rushing touchdowns this year. But consistency will be hard to come by offensively until they get Lombardi back. So I expect the only way they score is if we get out of position and they bust it for a big one. But I'll talk about that more later when I get to Kentucky's defense. Now moving on to Northern Illinois' defense, there really isn't a lot to like about them on that side of the ball. They returned 83% of production from a team that won the MAC and 9 games last year. And when you have that amount of returning players from that good of a team, you expect there to be a step up for them to learn from their mistakes last year and improve. But defensively, that's just not translating this year for some reason. They're giving up 284 yards passing per game and 160 plus on the ground per game. Those are horrendous numbers, and you're not going to win a bunch of games when you play like that defensively. They haven't played the best teams either. A win against Eastern Illinois, an FCS team in which they gave up 27 points, and then the 2 losses against Tulsa and Vanderbilt in which they gave up 38 points each in those games. And they don't make up for the excessive yardage with opportunistic turnovers either. Sometimes a redeeming factor in a defense that gives up a ton of yardage like that is that they can get after the quarterback, force mistakes. You know, a team drives 70 yards down the field and then they get a red zone turnover and it negates all that yardage. But they can't seem to do that. They had no sacks, interceptions, or tackles for loss against Vandy. And I think this could be a bad day for NIU's defensive unit. Now moving on to Kentucky's side of the ball. As you can tell, I think this is a great matchup for us offensively and defensively. We have a top 3 passing attack in the SEC, and that's a weakness of the NIU defense. We have 12 players with a reception of over 10 yards. I just thought that was a crazy statistic that 3 years ago we would have never dreamed of. Dane Key is in the top 10 in all receiving statistics in the SEC, and if we wanted to throw it 60 times, we could have 600 yards and 7 touchdowns. But we're not going to do that because we need to get that run game going. But I'm just saying that's how drastic of a matchup this is. If we wanted to, we could go air raid and absolutely destroy this team. But we need to get that run game going, and we have to stop giving up these drive stalling tackles for loss and sacks. Now, this could be a great opportunity to minimize those going against a pretty weak defense. But we really need to get smoke rolling and get that O-line gelling. If you take away the plays for lost yardage, then we're actually running the ball quite well. Looking at the box score and all the statistics, it would show about 50 more rush yards per week than what we've been getting. We will be getting Tayshawn Manning back this week at right guard, so that should help some, but it remains to be seen. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I'm not worried about their passing attack at all. Carrington Valentine can play on an island all game, and we should be able to sell out on the line of scrimmage. Hampton is a freshman making his first start, and in an SEC night environment like this, if we sell out in the first half and get him rattled, then it could be a long night for the guy. They've only given up 1 sack all year, but that could change in a big way this Saturday. I expect us to have at least 2 or 3, and we should be able to force them to hold the ball long enough to give our time for our linebackers to run their stunts and get home. UK is one of the 2 teams in FBS that hasn't allowed a passing touchdown. I'm pretty sure all of us have seen that statistic floating around this week, and I think that has a good chance of continuing this week. Each game we've given up a big chunk play, so there is the chance of that happening, as always, but they just don't have the athletes, I think, to force us to play out of position. That leads us to my 3 keys to winning this game. Number 1 is force negative plays and get into this freshman QB's head as early as possible. We need to have multiple defensive highlights coming out of this game, and we need them to destroy this team's will to play very early on. I know they haven't played great this year, but they're still mostly the same team that won the MAC last year. And if you let a team hang around till halftime, then they get it into their mind that, hey, they're still the same team they were last year and they can win this game. We need to destroy that mindset and that upset bed early. Number 2, no red zone turnovers and just being better in the red zone as a whole. Will has thrown 2 red zone INTs this year. Those are momentum killing. You drive 80 yards down the field and then you get no points. It messes with the offense's head. It messes with their rhythm. Everything about it is just all around bad. So red zone efficiency needs to be better moving forwards. 8 touchdowns in 16 red zone trips just isn't going to get it done down the road once we hit the meat of our SEC schedule next week. Number 3, I'll keep saying this until we fix it. No more negative rushing plays, and that includes sacks. They're killing us, and we could have won each game we've played by 14 plus more points if we just had average O-line play. And I know it's not entirely their fault, but it does start with them. I'd also like to see Will Levis roll out more. He's been stepping up into the pocket and into pressure when he has one side of the line collapse and could roll out and extend plays. He's got the athleticism to do it, and I'd like to see him do it. Now, also, I want to see us have 2 or less TFLs and no more than 1 sack. That'd be a huge improvement before our game with Ole Miss. The point spread on this game is 25.5 in our favor. The over-under is 53.5 points. I think we cover, but I don't see that over hitting. We just haven't been hitting the overs this year. So my score prediction is 42-10. I think Will is going to be out of this game by the end of the 3rd, and we'll probably have the spread covered before halftime. Now, before I go, please just make sure to like, subscribe, and share this channel, and y'all have a great day.